Hello guys, welcome to this video on questions from reanalysis which were asked for CSIR NET December 2019 examination in part B section. So this time we have 4 questions asked. So these are the 4 questions you can see which are asked for in the part B section from reanalysis. So for other solutions, please click on the I button which is displayed on the top. So now let us move on to the questions. So here is the first question. It's basically a question from a series. So here we are given a series and we are asked it converges to which particular um, value. So that means what is the sum of this particular series. We are given 4 options. First option is 3 by 8, second option is 3 by 10, the third option is 3 by 14, and the fourth option is 3 by 16. So now in this problem, basically there are many ways in which we can solve the problems in series, but this is in this particular problem I'm going to use a particular technique. So you can see here, in this if you see this particular uh, series, if I take this as the first term, second term, and so on, we can see that the nth term in this particular series can be written in this form, because you can see when you give n as 1 you get this particular term, and when you give n as 2 you get this term, and so on. So this is basically the nth term in this particular series. And if you want to just write this series in summation notation, you can write like this: is summation n equal 1 to infinity 1 by 2 power n times 3 power n plus 1 by 2 power n plus 1 times 3 power n. So this what I've written here is nothing but the same series what is given on the top. So here I'll just rewrite this particular series in this way. You can see I just splitted this term. 2 raised to n plus 1 is nothing but 2 raised to n into 2, or 2 times 2 raised to n. So I just splitted that term here, and now this again I can write something like this, because I've just taken the term 1 by 2 power n into 3 power n as common. So I get 1 plus half, isn't it? 1 plus half is the contribution from this section, and 1 is the contribution from this section. So what I get is something like this. So you can see this we can further simplify, and when you simplify this you get summation equal 1 to infinity 3 by 2 into 1 by 6 power n, and this 3 by 2 we can take outside, and if you take outside, what we get is 3 by 2 times summation n equal 1 to infinity 1 by 6 power n, and this is nothing but actually a geometric series that you know. So this particular series sum is nothing but given by a by 1 minus r, right, where a is the initial number, so in this particular series. So what you get here is nothing but like this, that is 3 by 2 times a by 1 minus r. The ratio is also 1 by 6, initial term is also 1 by 6, so 1 by 6 by 1 minus 1 by 6. So what you get is 3 by 10. So basically what you have seen here is basically a simple problem, right? But when you look into problems in real analysis, usually when we have a paper we'll feel like it's a bit difficult to solve the questions, and we'll just skip it and move. So I would suggest that you should try to read the questions and slowly see the questions, so that I think most of the problems are good at easily handle problems, so we can handle it easily. So let's see the next question. So another question is that if we are given that let less than equal to be the usual order on the field k of real numbers. So here we are taken k as a set of real numbers, and we're defining a new order on R square, something like this. That is, if you take elements in R square, a, b and c, d, ordered pair a, b and c, d, how you can basically order them, like which one is smaller, which one is bigger. Especially when you take a field of real numbers, we know that we have a usual order defined, that is, you know, like 1 is less than 2, you can compare the elements, right? So here we are given a particular order, something like dictionary order. So we say that this AB is less than equal to CD in this sense if A is less than C, and this less than is nothing but our usual order, ordering in K, and if A is equal to C, then B is less than equal to D, B is less than equal to D. So in that case we can say that AB is less than equal to CD. So that is what is the order given to us in this set R square. and we are asked to consider the subset E, that is the set the ordered pairs 1 by n 1 minus 1 by n, which are elements in R square where n belongs to n. So with respect to this particular order what is given to us, we are asked to check whether which of the following statements are true. That is, we are basically given four options based on the infimum and the supremum of this set E. They are arguing regarding the infimum and supremum. They are telling infimum is 0 1, supremum is 1 0. In second option they are telling that infimum does not exist and but supremum exists. Third option says that infimum is a particular value but supremum does not exist, and the last option says that both does not exist. So let us see the solution of this particular problem. So as I already told you that we are given a particular order in R2 to compare the elements in R2. So you know there are many kind of ordering, partial ordering, total ordering, and all those things. So total ordering is what is you usually see that we are following in R2 in R, like the field of real numbers and so on. So here I'll just give a small example to you, that is, as per this ordering 2 3 is less than or equal to 310. The ordered pair 2 3 is less than or equal to ordered pair 310, because what they're telling you, just compare the first coordinates. If A is less than C, then it is this AB is less than or equal to CD, and only if A is equal to C we go for checking the second coordinate whether B is less than or equal to D, so that we can confirm which is like this, whether this AB is less than or equal to CD. So if you take this particular example, you can see 2 is less than 3. So by this particular ordering, this ordered by 2 3 is less than or equal to 310. And if you take this particular case, if you take these two elements, you can see the first coordinates are same, right? So that comes in this category. So if A is equal to C, then you compare the second elements. So B is less than or equal to D. So 5 is less than or equal to 10, right? As per our ordering in K, that means K means set of real numbers, what I mean here. So with that particular ordering, we can say now that the element 1 5 is less than or equal to the element 110. Okay. So let us see the set defined to us. The set is defined as the ordered pairs 1 by n, comma 1 minus 1 by n, where n is basically a natural number. So you can see the set is nothing but this one what I've given here. Just substitute n equal to 1, we get n equal to 1. You substitute here, you get something like 1 0, the element 1 0. If you give n equal to 2, you get 1 by 2, 1 by 2, n equal to 3, 1 by 3, 2 by 3, and so on, right? Just substitute n as 3, you get 1 by 3, and this 1 minus 1 by 3 is again 2 by 3. So this is the set actually what we have with us, and based on this particular set we are asked to decide about the infimum and supremum of that particular set. So first we'll try to find the supremum of this set E. Okay, so if you just see this particular set, that is set containing the elements of this form, that is 1 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, 1 by 5, and so on, that is set 1 by n containing elements 1 by n where n belongs to natural numbers. So if you take this particular set, we know that the supremum of that particular set is 1 and the infimum will be in fact 0, right? So one thing we must keep in mind is that the supremum and infimum need not be contained in that particular set, and the supremum is nothing but the greatest the least upper bound, and infimum is nothing but the greatest lower bound of that particular set. So if you compare this particular set E, you can see if you see the elements of the first coordinate element, that is first coordinate, that is 1 1 by 2, 1 by 3, and so on. So that is what is happening, I've taken in this particular set. These elements I've taken in this particular set. Okay, so by our options, you can see we need to find supremum and infimum and all those things. So when you're finding the supremum of this set, and since the ordering given to us is something like this, you compare the first elements. If they are not same, if A is less than, like if A is less than C, you can declare straight away that this particular element is bigger than this element, right? That is, if A is less than C, you can straight away declare that this element is greater than equal to this element. But if first element is same in both the uh, ordered pairs you're comparing, then only you go for comparing the second term. So when you're discussing the supremum here, we need to find the supremum of this particular set. So if you see that the highest value here you can see is in the first coordinate is basically 1 there, right? It is 1, and there is no other uh, ordered pair with the first coordinate as 1 in this set, right? So what we can tell is, if you take any AB in this set E, A will be less than equal to 1, right? So including this, I am telling A is less than equal to 1. Or if you tell simply like, if you're excluding this term, you can tell it is A is less than 1. Okay. So for every AB in this E, this AB will be less than equal to the term 1, 0, because we are just checking the first coordinate over there. We're not worried about second coordinate. Okay. In that sense, I am telling, because you need to check about second coordinate only when you have problem with the first one, right? If first two are same. So here there is, if you take any particular element in this AB, you can see it will be less than equal to 1, 0 based on the first coordinates itself. So what we get is the supremum of this particular set is 1, 0. Okay. So similarly, we'll try to find the infimum of this particular set. So you can see I've just taken the second coordinates here, 0, 1 by 2, 2 by 3, 3 by 4, and so on. So this set has basically infimum 0 and the supremum is 1. This is basically, this is nothing but this, I've taken this sequence, that is, or the elements in this set are nothing but elements of the form 1 minus 1 by n, where n is a natural number. So we're getting 0, 1 by 2, 2 by 3, 3 by 4, and so on. So our aim now is to find out the infimum of this particular set. Infimum of this particular set means something like we have to find the lower bound, a greatest lower bound for this particular set. That is, if you compare any elements, if you take any AB in this particular set, we need to find an element for which AB will be greater than or equal to that particular element. That is, if you take any element AB in this set, it should be greater than or equal to that particular element. Such an element we need to find. So if you take this element 0, 1, you can see this element will be always less than or equal to AB based on this particular ordering. So then what we get is here 0, 1 is less than or equal to AB, and hence we get the infimum of E is actually 0, 1. You can see here in this set E, the first coordinates, that is 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, this particular sequence will actually converge to 0. And if you see the particular values, that is 0, second coordinates, that is 0, 1 by 2, 2 by 3, etc., it will be actually converging to 1. So in this case we are getting the infimum of this set to be 0, 1. So based on that, we can see the only correct option will be option 1, that is infimum of E is 0, 1 and the supremum of E is 1, 0. The remaining options will be false. You can just check it. So now we'll move on to the next question, that is, which of the following sets is countable? So here this is basically an interesting question. In this question I've given a bit more explanations and stuffs, so let us see that. So we are asked to check which of the following options are correct. That is, which of the following sets are countable. That is, take set of all functions from Q to Q. Q is set of rationals, and set of all functions from Q to set containing two elements 0 and 1, and set of all functions from Q to the set containing 0, 1, which vanishes outside a finite set. and fourth one is set of all subsets of n. So in this case, I will just like you to just revise what you have in your mind once. That is, if you take a if you take two sets A and B, and let set A has A elements and set B has B elements, then if you think of set of all functions from A to B, how can you construct such functions? So we know that if you are constructing a particular function, uh, if you take each element in A, like if you're trying to construct all the functions, so we are trying to see how many ways we can construct such functions. So each element in A will have basically B choices to be mapped to, and each such choice will give you a unique function. So in that sense, and also since each element has B choices, the total number of functions from A to B will be basically B power A. Okay, so this is something you know, but I just wrote it to uh, just revise it once. Okay, yeah, I hope that is okay. Or if you take a, or just think like if you have a set A and you have some elements in that, and you take the first element, and we know that the codomain has basically B elements, B has basically B elements. So if you take the first element, you can map to any of the B elements, right? So it will basically have B choices. Same if you take the second element of A, it also has how many choices? B choices, and so on, right? So thus we get this particular value, that is B power A. That is the total number of functions from A to B is B power A. So now we'll try to see the options one by one. So the first option uh, is basically the set of all functions from Q to Q, uh, whether they are, whether that particular set is countable or not. That is what we have to see. So the cardinality of the natural numbers and rational numbers are basically we denoted by LF naught symbol, like this you can see it's denoted by LF naught, and you know it is N and Q all are countable sets, right? So by our argument, the previous argument what I made, the set of all functions from Q to Q will be nothing but cardinality of Q power cardinality of Q, right? Previously we told set of all functions from A to B is something like cardinality of B power cardinality of A. So in that sense, here we get something like cardinality of Q is LF naught, so LF naught power LF naught, which is nothing but the continuum. So continuum basically we represent for uh, the cardinality of our set of real numbers, so it's basically uncountable, right? So we get is, what we get is option 1 is false. So similar fashion, if you look at the second option, set of all functions from Q to 0 1, the cardinality of that set will be 2 power LF naught, because our second set codomain set has only 2 elements, so it will be 2 power LF naught. It is also basically C, the continuum, so that also becomes uncountable. So we have option 2 is also false. Now I'll jump to the fourth option. The fourth option says the set of all subsets of n. So the set of all subsets of n is nothing but the power set of n, and you know the number of elements in a power set of a set of cardinality A is basically 2 power A. That means if you take a set with cardinality A, then the number of elements in that particular set is, power set is 2 power A. So using that notion, here we get, we are given that set of all subsets of n, set of natural numbers. So we get here that option 4 is false, because we get 2 power LF naught, because n also has cardinality LF naught, and just now we have seen that 2 power LF naught is C, that is the continuum, so which is again uncountable. So we get option 4 is false. So obviously this third option should be correct, that is set of all functions from q to 0 1 which vanish outside a finite set. So let us see into that particular option, that how we get that. So let us take a set S. Okay, so this is a set uh, in which like outside which the function, suppose a function vanishes. That means when I say function vanishes, meaning is that um, if you take a function f from q to 0 1, okay, f of ai is 1, that is for all I in this set, for all ai's in this set S, and for all other value outside this set S in q, that is q minus s, that's why I've written q minus s, the function value will be 0. That means for every value in this set the function value is 1, and for every entries outside this set the function value is 0. That is what you mean by that the term that a function vanishes outside a particular set. So let us take a finite set here. I've taken a finite set having n numbers. It is not dot, actually it's comma, sorry for that mistake. So we have a finite set here. So now if you take each set S, will have a function that vanishes outside S, isn't it? If you take a particular S, if you give any value, suppose you give S as a small set containing two elements 1 2, you can define a function for which for f of 1 and f of 2 both are uh, 1, and for remaining every entries we have the corresponding function value as 0. So for each set S we will have a function that vanishes outside S, isn't it? So we need to see that how many S are there, how many such S are available. So S can be of different kinds. It could be like having only a singleton. We are just given S is functions which vanishes outside a finite set. So it could have one element, it could have two elements or n elements and so on, right? So one thing what we have to keep in mind here is that uh, if you take a once particular set, then there is only one particular function that vanishes outside that particular set, because our codomain is basically having only two elements 0 and 1. And you can see that is, if you take a particular set S, then if you have two functions which vanish outside the same set S, then they should be definitely same, so that you can just have a writing, you can prove it. Now if you see here, I'm going to take a collection of sets Fn, okay, where um, and also I'm going to denote F as union I equal 1 to n Fn. So what I have to show here is, so basically what we have to show here is, if you come back here you can see we need to find how many S are there, such S are there. So once you get the idea about this, how many S's are available, then you can decide whether we have a countable number of such functions or an uncountable number of such functions. So as I told you, we could have functions of this, sorry, we could have S's of this kind, right, containing only one elements. We can have like two elements or some n elements, and basically n is a finite number we are choosing. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to take f1 as set of all uh, sets of this kind. We are going to take f2 as set of all sets of this kind, etc. fn as set of all sets of this kind. Okay, that is what you mean by this. Fi is what I'm defining here. So Fn is basically a set of collection of sets of this form a1 a2 etc., which contains n elements, and all these n elements are basically from the set of rationals. So if I can and also I can say that if I'm taking F to be a countable union of these sets Fn. So if this particular F is countable, then I am done with my proof. So that is what I have to show. When this particular F becomes countable, we have basically countable number of S, and once you have countable number of S, we'll have that countable number of functions which vanish outside a finite set, because there is a 1-1 correspondence here. And if you need a proof for this particular argument what I made, you should please comment on this video. I'll give it to you. I will do it for you. Okay, so yeah, to show that f is countable, so if you simply take you consider a map phi from fn to the space q cross q cross q etc q cross q, that is n times q is nothing but set of rationals, and we define a mapping something like this, that is an element set in fn, that is s is mapped onto what, something like this, that is a set containing elements a1 a2 etc an is mapped onto the element, you can see the n tuple a1 a2 etc an. This is the mapping what I've given. So I'm assuming without loss of generality, I'm assuming that a1 is less than equal to a2 is less than equal to an, just for my function to be well defined. So here the reason is nothing but, if I am going to you can just think like, if I take a1 a2 etc an, if you take here a1 a2 etc an, an element from this, we are getting a value, we are getting a particular element in the codomain which is mapping to this particular element, right? If I just change this a1 a2 order, I'll write a2 a1 then the same, but still what I have on this domain is nothing but the same set, right? Because if I write a1 comma a2 comma etc an, and if I write a2 comma a1 comma etc an, both the sets are same, isn't it? So what you get, something like for the single set you're getting two images, right? That is what is happening. That's why I told I am assuming in that sense my function has to be well defined, otherwise my function will not be well defined. Okay, I hope that is clear. So we define in this manner. So what we can see is the function is actually an injective function, because if phi of an s1 is equal to phi of s2, it will imply that, because phi of s1 or phi of this set is this n tuple and phi of this set is this n tuple, and this is same will imply that this are same, or I'll get all ai's are equal to bi's, that means these two are basically same. That means I'm getting something like the function is 1 1, and we have this result that if we have function from a to b is injective, then cardinality of a is less than equal to cardinality of b. So hence what we get is cardinality of fn is less than equal to cardinality of q power n, isn't it? Because our codomain here is q n times q, that is q times q times q etc q, and the domain is fn. So this cardinality of this set will be basically less than equal to cardinality of this set, and this is basically a countable set. So our fn is also a countable set, and since we have this, that the countable union of countable sets is countable, we can say f is countable. So once f is countable, what we get is the number of s's outside which the functions vanish, right, is basically countable. So we get totally a countable number of such functions, because just now I've told you that for each s there exists a unique function which vanishes outside that particular s. So thus we get uh, the third option as the correct one, that is we get that set of all functions from q to 0 1 which vanish outside a finite set. Only this particular option is correct, and remaining all three options are false. Okay, so now we'll move on to the last question. So this question is basically also a simple question if you work with counter examples. So only thing is you must know what is lim inf and limit infimum, sorry, limit inferior and limit superior, that is we called as lim inf and lim sup, limit sup and limit inf, like many names we have using it. So here you can see we are given xn is a sequence of non-negative real numbers, and we are asked which of the following statements are true. So first one is limit xn is equal to 0 implies that limit xn square is 0. Lim sup xn is equal to 0 implies that limit xm square equal to 0. And sorry, it is not xm, it is xn, sorry for that. And limit xn equal to 0 implies the sequence is bounded, and limit xn square greater than 4 will imply that limit sup xn is greater than 4. So I'll just give you the definition of lim_inf here. You can see it is nothing but supremum of all infimums in this form. That is, if you have a sequence like x1 x2 etc xn, what you're doing is you fix the n first. Suppose you fix n as 0, and you find all the xn's xm's which are greater than xn. That is, if you fix 0, that is, sorry, if you fix x0, you take x0 x1 x2 etc all the elements, take the infimum of that particular value. Okay, next you take n as 1, then you take x1 x2 x3 x4 etc, you take the infimum of that particular set. Then you go for n, you take as 2, and you find the infimum of set containing elements x2 x3 x4 and so on. So in that fashion you find all the infimums and you take the supremum of that. That is what you mean by the lim_inf. Okay, limit inferior. So that is the way we calculate the lim_inf. So it is something like the supremum of all infimums. Okay, similar way, uh, if you take lim_sup, it is defined same manner. I have given the definition here. You can see, if you same way, if you fix n equal to 0, that is, if you fix um, n equal to 0, you take all xm's where m is greater than equal to 0, that is, you take x0 x1 x2 etc, and for that particular set you find out the supremum. Then you take n equal to 1, then you find x1 x2 x3 etc and find supremum, and from all these supremums you find the infimum. That is what you have as limit sup. So for example, I'll give you a small example. If you take this particular sequence, you can see it's an oscillating sequence. It's like 0 1 0 1 and so on. So if you are going to find the lim_inf here, you are going to get 0. Then if you take n as 0, you take all these elements to the right and you take the infimum, that value is 0, right? If then you take n is equal to 1, then you take from here, you take the values, isn't it? Then you get the value, sorry, the infimum again to be 0. And when you take for all these zeros, you take the supremum, again you get supremum as 0, so you get lim_inf as 0. Same way you can find out the limit sup for the sequence, and we'll get it as 1. So let us move on to the options. So if you consider this particular sequence 0 2 0 4 0 6 and so on, we can see that the lim_inf is nothing but 0, right? The lim_inf we'll get is basically 0, but the sequence is basically not bounded above, isn't it? Because it is increasing sequence, right? Sorry, not increasing sequence, it's actually an oscillating sequence, but it is going in such a way that it is not bounded above. So if you want a sequence to be bounded, then it has to be both bounded above and below. So the sequence is not bounded, so that makes the third option false. Okay, option 3 is false. And if you consider the first two options, it is a bit more simpler actually. If you can take this particular sequence itself. If you take the this sequence, you can see lim_inf of xn is 0. Yes, it is satisfied. And if you find xn square, that is, you have to find xn square, you get what xn square is: 0 square 1 square 0 square 1 square and so on, right? So that sequence is nothing but the same sequence. So but limit n tends to infinity xn square is not 0, right? It is again oscillating. It is a divergent series, sorry, divergent sequence. So this option is not correct. First option is not correct. So we saw third option using this example, right? And if you take this particular uh, sequence, I'm going to discuss fourth option now. If you take this particular sequence, you can see we have taken something like 3 4 3 4 3 4. Again I'm taking an oscillating sequence. Basically, when you have problems from limit and limit soup, I would prefer you work on some sequences like oscillating sequences, which will help you to give more counter examples. So here in this case, we're getting the sequence like this. Like I'm choosing the sequence in this fashion. Then you can see xn square sequence is nothing but 3 square 9, 4 square 16, 3 square 9, 4 square 16, and so on, right? And if you find the limit sup, limit xn square, you get is nothing but equal to 9, right? For this particular sequence, the limit is basically 9, but the limit sup is of xn, limit sup of xn is 4, which is not greater than 4. So this option is not correct, isn't it? So that means that option 4 is also false. So I've given you three counter examples here for first, third, and fourth, and we got that first, third, and fourth all are not correct answers. So in this case, the only correct option is option 2. So you can see that if we have a sequence of non-negative real numbers, and if the limit sup is basically 0, then the limit xn square is equal to be 0. It's not m, it's n. So limit xn square is going to be 0. So the only correct option is option 2. So in this case, yeah, so the only correct option is option 2. So okay guys, thank you for watching this video, and if you have any queries regarding the statements what I made, any proofs you need, you can please comment in the comment box down, and I request you to subscribe my channel for getting further videos of this kind. Thank you, keep learning, see you in the next video.